everybody to Catfish Weekly, presented by Whiskerware Apparel, along with Chuck Davison and Doc Lang. I'm Lyle Stokes, and welcome to the show. Chuck Davison is sitting outside at his house again. Is it raining out there, Chuck?
Yes, raining, breezy. Bad thunderstorm came through about 30 minutes ago. I just sat out here with my feet propped up and enjoying it.
It's probably pretty cool out there, isn't it?
No, not really. I got wet a while ago just going out doing some stuff I shouldn't have been doing. But
no, I mean compared to normal temperatures this time of year.
No, not really. It's just a little bit damp right now, damp and muggy. It's probably in the 70, 75, something like that.
Not too bad. How's your week going, Doc?
It's a lot cooler here in Ohio.
I'm pretty sure you're right about that.
Yeah, it's down in the 50s. It was up in the 70s yesterday, and today it's in the 50s, so it's downright cold out there right now.
I hear you. We had a pretty cool day here. How much?
It's 66 right now, low of 61 tonight.
That's pretty hard to handle, isn't it, Doc?
Yeah, he's killing me. 2 weeks in a row, he puts me through this.
Well, when you're in the plant 12 hours a day, it don't matter what the weather is outside. You don't even know what's out there.
That's true.
I'm sure that's right. Well, guys, we got a lot of stuff to go over tonight. We're going to be talking and visiting about preparation and how that we determine what water we're going to fish and what water that we're going to discard, or a reasonable assumption of what we go through when we go to different places to fish. But before we get started, I know I have an announcement here for the ICATS tournament that was held up in Iowa last weekend, and I'm not sure what body of water that was on. I've never been up there, but Ken Miller and Troy Hansen and Ryan Daniels won that tournament, and that was an excellent job for them. And I want to congratulate Ryan Moran and Claude Reynolds on their big fish they caught out in your neck of the woods, Doc. I'll let you. I'm sure you've got all the information for that. I know you was at that tournament. Yep. And Janet and Dick, second place. Man, you guys are tearing them up. Good job, you guys.
Got that too.
Okay.
All right.
Well, lay it on us.
All right. Shout out to Vince Nadasky. He ran a good tournament this past weekend. It was out of Tanner's Creek in Indiana. It was won by Tim Mullaville and Grant Wilson. They had 5 solid fish, 86.4 pounds. Second place was Don Elder and Gerald and Justin Hedges. They had 71.2 pounds. A big fish, like Lyle said, was Claude Reynolds and his partner Ryan Moran. 41.2 pound flathead. 42 boats in the tournament. It rained most of the day. A couple of times it was an utter monsoon. But my team only caught 2 fish, and we struggled most of the day. 1.5 mile an hour current on the Ohio. We don't ever see that, hardly any at all. And so I elected to anchor. Actually, I enjoyed myself anchoring because you don't have to watch rods as much as you do when you're drifting and stuff like that. I elected not to drift, and I should have been drifting because that's the guys that were drifting. The fish wanted to see that bait moving by them. So, and then on the Ohio Hills Catfish Club, that tournament was won by J.L. Campbell and Jesse Burnett. They had 91.4 pounds. The big fish, that same team caught the big fish, and that was a 44.6, and they won that tournament with 3 fish. According to Bink, they had another 40-pound flathead on board with them. So Janet and Bink Fox, who are Black Horse Pro staff members, they came in second with 77.6 pounds. So,
and people want to know why that I'm on Janet about turning loose of them flathead seekers. I mean, every time they're in a tournament, they got them. if they're, especially, over in your neck of the woods, but it doesn't necessarily have to be over there. I mean, they put a giant 2 years ago in the boat down in Alabama, 77?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got something figured out on flatheads. They need to give it up now. That's amazing. And them guys are tearing it. And Claude and Ryan, I seen the fish and from my understanding, I've not been out there. From my understanding, that's a great fish in that water.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Years ago, 20 years ago, we seen fish like that all the time. Now, commercial netting is taking over, and I'm not even going to get ranting and raving again. So I'll be quiet.
I understand that. Then there's some great weights for that water, and they're good turnouts for the weather conditions and all that stuff. So
yeah,
I'm glad everybody had a great weekend, and we'll get started with the other stuff. I'm going to touch on a couple of things here right quick, and then I'll kind of leave it with you guys, and we'll talk about things back and forth. And feel free to jump in if I say something that you agree with or don't agree with. But before we ever leave to go somewhere, and it doesn't necessarily have to be to a tournament. I mean, if we're going up to the lake or something, and I'm going to a different ramp and I'm not used to going, I'm on that Navionics map. And something that I know that you know that we do, Doc, is we're preparing to go to this Mississippi River Monster Tournament, and we're preparing to go to Monsters on the Ohio. And for the last month and a half, 2 months, 3 or 4 nights a week when I'm waiting on stuff to dry, I'm on that Navionics map charting that river, and I've got it blowed up as big as it'll go on my monitor so I can see where I want to try fishing. And one thing about that is it gives you a good idea of a spot that you want to look at. And you get down there, and it may not be a spot you want to fish, or the fish might not be in it. But
right.
I think that people need to spend time on those things and make themselves aware. Write yourself notes, however you want to do it. There's an app for a phone, and if you'll send me a message, I'll give it to you because I can't think of what it is. But it tells you all kinds of cool stuff where you can write down notes to yourself, and you just pull it up on your phone, and you can check it at any time. And when we get to a place like that, if it's a tournament, now if we're just going out fishing, we'll run by them places. If there's fish there, we'll try them, and then if they don't do anything, we'll go to the next spot that we're talking about. And if we see something in between the spots, then we'll look at that. But usually when we go to a tournament, we go and spend the first day looking at the spots that we've picked out and seeing if they're what I think they was or what they should be or what I'm expecting or not. May have to throw all that out the door, but usually not. Usually some of those will be places that we want to fish, and we'll try them out. I'm looking for spots where creeks or little small rivers run into the main lake or the main river that we're fishing. Depends on whether if it's in light current or I may be right out in the main part of the current, because especially blues will win the majority of the tournaments we go to, and you'll catch more of them normally. But if they like current, they don't get too heavy for blue cats, and if it's not terribly bad, they'll be right out in the middle of it. And a lot of times we're fishing right down the main channel of a river. Now, if it's a real heavy current, even those blues have to take a break, so they're going to be going in places and looking behind dikes, current breaks, seams, stuff, where there's slack water. Go in, and I always check those places if I'm in a place that has an eddy or something where there's real fast current. Go in there. A lot of times you can set up in there and nose your boat up on a bank if it's not too steep, and sit there and anchor for a few minutes. And if there's a flathead or a big blue that's in there taking a break out of that current, a lot of times you can nail him. And that's always a good idea. Frontal wing dikes is something that people forget about, and for me they're not as productive as say the behind a wing dike, especially off the tip. I like to fish the holes in the tips off the wing dikes. That works out good for me. But current seams is always a good place, and I'm looking for drop-offs. And in those maps, they have I don't know what you call them. You guys have to help me out. Contours. It tells
Contours.
you, yeah, the highs and low spots are, and if there's a ledge in there or a drop off, I'm going to go by that because most of those ledges and drop offs are holding some fish. May or not be the ones I'm looking for. I've seen some of them that I would just bet money there was giant fish in. You get in there and it's be 40 foot deep and it'd be nothing but a bunch of small fish in there, which is a fun day of fishing. You catch a bunch of 10, 12-pound fish or less even, but you'll get the right one. It's kind of like wing dikes. You might find fish on every wing dike you hit, but the right fish that's going to do you some good will only be on one or two of all the dikes that you check. So if I don't find it, and what I do with that map is I eliminate the places that I don't want to fish as much as I'm looking for places that I do want to. There'll be long stretches of water where there's no structure, nothing, no reason for them to be there. The only reason that I would fish that is if I'm drifting, and I'm fishing the main seam right down through the middle of the river where the most current's at. A lot of times that'll work. It doesn't have to have structure if it's got that current, or it doesn't seem to. But, those some ideas of stuff that I do. Doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. But that's the things that I look for. And like I say, the last month and a half, 2 months, I've been on there 3 or 4 nights a week, late at night when I could concentrate on what I'm doing. And I'm telling you, I've been all the way down to, what's that gambling town down below Memphis?
Well, Tunica?
Tunica. I've been on that river all the way from Tunica way on up north. I mean, I don't know it like the back of my hand or like some of the water I fish, but when I pull that map up, I can say, boom, I've already looked at this spot. I've looked at this spot, so I know I want to check something else out. And I do that a lot. And when we get there, I'll have an idea of what I want to look at, and I'm sure that you'll have some ideas, and we'll spend our time find our fish and hope we can get them to go.
Yeah, well, and the other thing you can, since you got a Lowrance, you can go ahead and just jump right in there and put those pieces the puzzle on your Lowrance. But I need to be on the boat to show you how to do that.
Yeah, you do, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just about done learning with that thing. I
just keep it until September. So
I will. I can get so much more out of a hummingbird, so much faster and easier and better everything. It's just, there's no comparison, and it's just simply for the fact that I'm not used to using it. That's all. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that unit. It works good, but it seems like every time we go out there. Now there is one feature on that thing. I've told everybody ever since we started using that I love that touchscreen. That is a wonderful tool. I think every new unit should have that on it, and you don't get it all hogged up like you'd think you would. It works out really well, but there is a button on there that you can push to tell you the distance you are from the place you marked. If you mark 5 or 6 fish in a huddle, now you can do this on a hummingbird, but it's not as easy. With that Lowrance, if you're going to anchor fish or if you're drifting, you can push that and it'll tell you in feet as you get close how close you are to that spot. Now, it'll actually kind of cock it off to one side or the other if you're not directly over it. It's not dead on, but just knowing how far you are from that spot, especially if you're anchored. I mean, you can throw that anchor out and you mark that spot, and if you're in line with that mark, you just tie your anchor off, say, if you don't want to throw but 30 or 40 or 50 feet, however far you're comfortable with, or if you just want to go down there and you're planning on catching, there's 6 fish in there and you're going to catch all 6 of them, then you're right there. You can throw the bait right to them. That is a feature that I really do like. It took me a while to figure it out, but I do struggle. I have a hard time using that. There is no way that could be as easy. It could be so much easier to operate if they just make a couple of changes on it. But it does work well. Has good screen on it. It's very clear to see everything. And like I say, if I'd been using that for the last 20 years instead of hummingbirds, I'm sure I'd feel the same way. It is, but man, it's hard to relearn, and that may be something to do with my age. I'm not going to say that 100% for sure, but it may be. Chuck, what do you look for when you guys go out looking for stuff?
First off, if it's a tournament or somewhere I'm really going to be getting into, targeting some large trophy catfish, I do the same thing. I get on Navionics, find out where I want to launch from, what part of the river I want to cover. The things I look for is I love humps. So, they're hard to distinguish on your chart because, you really got to look at you know, the foot number next to the contour because a hole and a hump can look exactly alike. You just gotta know which way. My new Lake Master, it's got more of a variety on the highlights on the color. So pretty much, it'll change colors. It get a little darker blue if you go deeper, or lighter blue if you go shallower. So that really helps me on distinguishing the humps from the holes. But humps have really been, have paid off for me. Um, Also, you know, channel edges. Uh, I like, spot locking on this structure and letting down on them a lot of times. Um, since I've got this spot lock feature, it's really kept the anchor at home, and it's helped me stay moving around a lot more. I've been spot locked on the back of these humps before, and just sitting still. My boat's swinging around a little bit, the bait's barely moving, and I've actually just taken the spot lock off and start letting the current take me, and boom, they'll start hitting it immediately. I'll be sitting there 10 minutes without a bite. So sometimes you just got to be moving, and so I'll get out there on them humps sometimes, and if the current's not too strong, and I'll actually, you know, circle those humps. I'll get on these contour lines, and not only go with the current when there's a slight current, I go back up against it. So I'll keep beating down the same place. If I see stuff that I'm interested, and I know the fish are holding tight on timber or wood, I'll find me a nice stretch of river bank and channel edge that's got a lot of timber and wood on it, and I'll just you know go up and with my trolling motor just up and down. Sometimes they get real finicky, and you just got to stay on them, and eventually they'll just start biting. They can't stand it no longer. After you get out there and just tease them for a while, they're going to get on it. And I'm just bringing that up because probably the past 8 out of 10 times I've been fishing have, you know, most of them have been tournaments during a bad pressure situation. So, that's forcing me to go out and fish really, really tight to this structure and get in there, um, and get these fish out of them because you can get 5 feet away, um, when they're laid right up against that log, to keep them from floating up or whatever that pressure is doing to them. They're not going to come off of it. You got to get that bait right there on their face, and most of the time they'll commit. But besides humps, I like the front and the back end of holes. Um, the back end of holes to me, they're kind of like the front of a hump. The current can get that food and other stuff right up in front of that hump, and it just starts rolling and churning in front of that hump because it's trying to ramp up it. Some of it's going around to the sides, but the back of holes have really paid off good for me with big fish because it seems like when that stuff gets to the back of that hole, the heavier stuff, it don't want to, go on up the walls and stuff and leave that hole. So it just wants to churn on the bottom. And I fished entire nice drift lanes that have had different elevations of structure and didn't catch a thing till I got to the very end of the hole. When it starts going back up again, I guess it has something to do with the way that water churns or something. But a lot of times, they'll be holding in spots like that.
Jason Malone says that he likes them big round humps too, Chuck. What do you get a lot of bites on the edge of a drop off? You know, like if we have wing dikes and we got lots of wing dikes, and off the end of the wing dikes there's a hole. And anchor fishing early in the year, I like to set up above those and fish those. And what I'll try to do is cast to the edge of that, and then I'll raise it up and let the current take it back and try to walk it through them holes. And most of my bites come from somewhere between the bottom of that hole and the top of the hole. Do you guys ever run into a deal like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to think about it. A guy that took me out catfishing, when my dad was working, probably 10 years straight, 7/12s, and it was a big part of my life where I didn't have him to take me out a whole lot. So one of my dad's friends would take me out, and he said, you see that river bank right there, you see those caves, those crevices, and all that. He said right there below it on that channel edge looks exactly the same. He says there's caves, indentions and fish back up in all them holes in that channel edge. And that just sticks in my mind. So a lot of times when I find some really good structure, some wood and maybe some rock on a nice channel edge, I picture those caves and stuff and those fish being back up in those holes, because being backed up in the hole, that's holding tight the structure to me. That's something where a fish can relax, and if his swim bladder's blowed up, he don't have to try to hold himself down. He's got something to hold him down, and keeping running that bait in front of him a couple of times, gets that scent up in there, and it really seems like it gets them to bite. That's why those caves and all that stuff that you really can't see. If you got side imaging and you get back from those channel edges just enough, when you see those real dark spots on the side of that channel edge, that's places that you're not getting a return from, and that's places that catfish can get back in. And if you just keep bringing your bait in front of those holes on those coast fronts, a lot of times you can pick up some really good fish on those ledges like that.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for high red clay banks because they're
way back.
yeah, that where the bank is real. Actually the bank is higher than the boat, and sometimes I'm looking way up, and the bank is way above my head, and I'm just drifting down through there. And generally the water's 35 foot deep, and they'll be sitting back in underneath that stuff. They'll actually have where the river has cut that bank, especially if it's on an outside turn. That water has come around and has just gouged out a nice ledge all down through there, and them guys will sit down there and stack right up. In fact, I've accidentally had my rods, tapping into the mud, and them fish start banging them rods down.
Awesome.
So
yeah, a lot of guys say, I didn't mark no fish. If there's good structure and you got a good feeling about a spot, if you see, a lot of times if I see a whole lot of fish, I'm not going to catch a big fish, because to me, a 10-pound fish isn't going to hang around with a 70 or an 80. You might not see those big fish backed up in those places. And if you go to Bass Pro Shop or one of these places that's got these big blue cats in these aquariums, stand back and just watch him for a while, and he'll do the same thing. He'll get up against that rock, and they'll have a little cave or something in there. A lot of them will just stick their head up in there, just past the gills. They think they're totally hid, and there's 4 foot of fish sticking out. That's how they act the same way when they're down there on them channels that, them clay banks that Docs are talking about. Big tree roots that have been washed out. They get all up in that stuff, and you got to get that bait up in there where they can get at it.
Yeah.
You know, I firmly believe, and we've talked about this before, but I firmly believe that small fish hang together, medium-sized fish, and when I'm talking about medium-sized fish, I'm talking about 20 to 40 pound range, and the big dogs hang together. And I also believe that if you find one large fish, there'll probably be another fairly close, because I think they like to stay in groups of one or two, three, something like that. And I know we caught a flathead in a tournament in Quincy, Illinois, a few years ago, and there was two fish in this creek inlet, and I had both of them on and caught one of them. It was a teenage flathead, and the other was in there. I found them on side imaging, and if I'd have got that other one in, we'd have probably won that tournament, but it got off before it got to the boat. But I think that they like to stay in their size areas. And I don't know if you can consider that age groups or whatever, you call them whatever you want to, but I think the small fish, 15 pounds and under or 10 pounds and under, to hang together. The little bitty guys hang together like they do in schools when you see them in a creek, and I think one or two, three of the big dogs will stay pretty close together, and I believe that, and you won't always catch them both, but there's always that opportunity.
Yeah, you know when you're fishing a channel ledge and you're always looking to that one pole, because you know that one pole in relation to the rest of the dead sticks you've got on the boat is the one that usually gets a hit when you're going down that certain side of the channel. That's because when you're on that contour line, you know, usually that first rod that gets to them on the channel ledge side is the one that usually gets a hit in my boat. You know, and it just seems like that's the one that every once in a while I'll get a little bit too close, you know, and I'll see the tip bouncing, you know, and it's dragging over, hitting tail sticking out of holes or whatever, and the fish is just going to say, "What was that?" Turn around, boom, reaction bite. You know, and that's, you know, I'll just sit there and catch myself just staring at one pole all the time because for some reason I know that's the one that usually gets hammered. And you know, after you know, fish these certain tactics like that for a while and these certain type banks like them clay banks, you know, you know where to stare at. You know usually where it's going to be coming from.
Yeah. Most of my fishing, you know, I really try to stay tight to ledges. On the Ohio, the bait is on the ledges, the blues are on the ledges. They are usually somewhere close to where that ledge is. And for some people out there that may not know what a ledge is, it's a drastic change in the depth of the water. And if you're looking at it on a map, I run a Simrad, I run a Lowrance, and on one, I can switch them back and forth, but on one I've got Navionics, on the other I have my Insight Genesis, and I'm always bebopping back and forth between them. That's what's nice about that touch screen. All you got to do is just tap and change it. But on the ledges, they're dark black, real tight lines, and that just shows that it's a step down. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those step downs on the Tennessee River. Them fish sit right on the very edges. I really at another time I want to get a picture up here to show everybody what that looks like, because every time I get a rod go down, I hit a mark on my Lowrance so that you know, and you'll see where those fish are sitting right along those edges. You know, when you go to flats, now a flat on a map is it's wide. You know, you don't see any contour lines anywhere near it. It's just big and wide. And there are times, you know, during the year the flats are, man, that's the place to be.
Sometimes they're hot.
Yeah, especially if the bait is bundled up out there, and you're you know, either you're dragging, you know, the current is way down and you can be dragging baits or you can be drifting, you know, whatever you're doing. and you stay in them flats, you won't, either it's a mud bottom or rocky bottom. You just got to watch your tips if you're dragging, and it'll tell you what's out there.
Oh yeah. And we got a question that says, after you drift one side of the channel, do you then go back and drift the other side? Um, well, it depends on, if it looks productive or not. If an outside bend, um, I might, if the current's really strong and I think they may have went to the inside to get out of it. Um, I'll look at the navionics. Most of the time on the inside bend, it's a gradual slope. The outside bend's dug in. The bait fish may be up in there. Wherever the bait fish are, most of the time you're going to find big cats. So, yes, I've fished the other side, and also the way talking about channel edges and step downs, and you can look at your charter sometimes, and you'll see some contour lines real close together, and then you'll see like a little flat, and you'll see some more contour lines real close together, and another little flat. These are like steps, and a lot of times, you can drift up and down the 30 to 35 foot step, then move on up to the 23 to 17 foot step, and you can really find the fish that way. You may only be getting bites, but if you're getting, little taps or activity in that depth of water, that would be somewhere where I would want to go check and see if there was more fish in other spots in that depth of water. It's kind of like, in the first thing in the morning, you find your nice channel edge. It goes from 12 foot down to 40. You anchor down at about 20 foot of it, and you fan them lines out. And if you start getting a lot of bites around 25 foot, and none of your other rods are having any activity, focus on that 25 foot contour all the way around that lake. Just check it out and see what kind of interesting things you see going on around that depth. You'll see, you'll just follow that line. And then you say, well, if I was a fish, this would be something I would be interested in. And those are the places that you want to go see, where a 25 foot line at the beginning of a hole, even though it might go off to 65 foot, you know,
Is he done?
off and then run down the edge a little bit. If there's not much current, go back against that current, and get your reaction bite. I get just as many fish going opposite of the current than I do go with it most of the time, because a lot of times it's just something different. They turn around and they smell it or get a sense of it, and they just hit it because it's standing out from everything else around them.
Well, as far as going up and down the channel edge, if I go, most of the time I'm either going to be right dead in the middle, and we're going to have something going out to the side as we're bouncing down through there behind the boat. And if we get hit a couple of times or we put some fish in the boat, I'm definitely going to go back through that area. Now, if I'm going down through there and I'm on the deep side of that river channel, and I see over in the shallow side on the inside of that bend, if I see a bunch of shad flipping over, I'm going back for them. Because if them shad are up in there flipping, them blues
fish are going to be there.
You better believe it. And you just roll up and get everything a little tighter into you, because it's not going to be near as deep, and you just head on back and go up in there. And Chuck, you was talking about turning around and going upstream, making your drift or dragging your bait back up there. A lot of times you'll notice you'll get bit while you're making that turn.
Yeah, because it picks up a little bit of speed to it.
Exactly, it's something different. If they're around it and they're watching it or smelling it or getting ready to do something, if you'll turn that boat at the right time, a lot of times they'll just run up and smack that baby. And them's the aggressive bites that people say, oh, they just pick it up and they're just mouthing on it. Well, when you turn that boat and they hit it, they're going to run off with it because they're already in a dead run to get it because the speed's picked up on it, and you better hang on, because if it's got any size to it, you're going to know it's there.
Yep.
Well, what do you got, Doc, for information like that?
Well, let me think here. Caught me off guard.
No, Jason Malone, he said that he said I catch more going upstream. He means going against the current. That
Yeah, but
like
have you ever seen him dance on the front of a boat? Come
yeah, I
on,
know it,
man.
man.
Yeah.
That like the past couple of times I've been on the Ohio River, especially the pre-fishing, and that was comparable to the current on these Tennessee River and Coosa rivers and stuff. You get flows, controlled by the power company, and most of the time your boat, if you was just going with the current, you'd go 0.8 or 1.5, something like that. But when the current's down around 0.5, 0.3, something like that, that's a perfect time to drag against the current for me, because your lines stay straight. You're still moving your baits, and dragging against the current like that. I've had a whole lot of success the past month or two fishing with my new partner Tony. He's been doing this dragging for a while, with Jason Bridges and stuff, and he's showing me, made me a believer about this reaction bite thing, going against the current. Going about, the current's going 0.3, and you're moving 0.2 against it. So, it's worked out really good for us.
Yeah. Well, a couple of weeks ago when I was in Tennessee, we were doing the very same thing, going against the grain. Had baits. When I'm dragging, I like to have my rods up high and way out behind the boat. I mean, they are way out there. They're 150 feet behind the boat.
How do you stagger them to keep them from if you have to, if a side draft gets you and your boat turns, or how do you do it so you don't get tangled up as much when you got that much line back here?
Run one long, one short, so that if it crosses over top, it won't. Now the only problem it becomes is if I have a big fish get on that back line. More than likely he's going to get caught on that other one. But 2 weeks ago when I caught that flathead, I caught him on the long line that was way out behind the boat. And we were going against the current, about 0.1, 0.2 mile an hour current. Wasn't much, but I had a Rodan locked in and just had it rolling up through there. And again, I was watching my contour lines, and it was right on the edge of a ledge, and there was a 15-foot flat right beside the ledge. It went from 15 to 45, and I was wearing out my waypoint button, because every time I get a fish on, I hit a waypoint, and then that you start seeing that pattern develop on your map, so you know where to go. And we come back through there, and I had just told Daniel, I said, man, there's a good fish on the screen. And about that time, that's when the drag broke loose and that rod was down. And I'm standing on the back of the boat, and he goes, are you going to get that? I said, I can't. I got to wait till he quits running. And I said, there's no way I'm going to even get this. I said, I've got the drag set fairly tight, and he's still ripping it off of there. So when he slowed down a little bit, then I pulled back on him, and I told Daniel, I said, Daniel hasn't caught a flathead yet, so he's getting real itchy about it. And I've caught like 3 or 4 to his 0, so he's dying to catch a flathead. But that was a nice flathead. It was 45 pounds, and I was done after that. After I got him on board the boat, we were doing the fist bumps and all that, and I said, man, that was a good fish. And it wasn't more than 10 minutes later than a 45-pound blue drills the same rig that I had out there. So
oh yeah,
same way.
dragging against the grain, as you said, that it seems like to me, if you're going with the current, um, so as soon as you pass a fish, the scent's gone with your bait,
Yeah.
and it's gone. When you're dragging against, you drag past that fish, and that scent's gonna keep coming at him. I mean, you're gonna be getting further away from him, but that scent's still going at him,
He's
and
hungry, he'll run it down.
yeah, he'll run it down. You'll get a tap, and then about 20 foot later, then they'll commit. Bam! You think he's already gone. Oh, he wasn't interested. Then 20 feet later, that rod lay down. He was just waiting on a good bounce or something. But yeah, this drifting thing, moving around, it's really getting
It's
fun this time of
exciting.
year.
It really is exciting. It's probably the most exciting way to catfish.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
but I've
Yeah.
got this. Doc, you was talking a while ago about you're going down through there, and every time you see a fish in the area, you hit a waypoint. I do the same thing. If we're along the edge and I see a fish, I'll mark it. If I go 20 feet and I hit another, I'll mark it. And as I go down that river, when I come back to fish that, if we're drifting, I'm going to try to control that boat where I go from one mark to the next mark to the next mark before
Yeah.
I vary away from that. Is that how you guys do it too?
Yep.
oh yeah,
Exactly.
Okay.
right.
I just
Yeah.
thought maybe I was offline, but I've done that, ever since we was able to drift and mark fish in a sequence. And if you'll watch them marks, they'll be in very similar places most of the time.
Yeah.
Yes,
Not always.
that's so what when this new technology came out with the Rodan and the Hummingbird spot lock, and I'm sure Minco, the other companies
Motor
had
Dad?
similar stuff. Yeah, they got similar stuff, but that when I'm drifting a river channel edge like that, I mark structure mostly. If there's a big fish on structure, of course I'm gonna mark it, but I'm marking structure when I go up through there. If I see something on that channel edge that looks like it'd be a good place that would hold a big fish, even if I didn't mark it, I will come back down and I will spot lock on those and just take my time when I'm beating that channel edge down. Find that good channel edge, drift it, mark you some good structure, and go back and sit on each one for about 5 minutes. And sometimes you'll be sitting there for 5 minutes and then just take that spot lock off and just start moving down, and then wham, they'll hit it immediately. It's something about that bait sitting there and all of a sudden start going. That's usually when they've been hitting on me.
Yeah.
But it's also weird, if I'm spider rigging, as I call it. I got 6 rods out, spread out everywhere, and I'm floating down the river like a big jug, just trying to stay on that channel edge, keeping my speed right. It seems like the the bigger fish, if you start getting a bite, you stop and you think, well, I'm gonna stop to see if he takes it. Every time I do that, the bite stops, and I don't even do it anymore. When I first got this spot lock, I'm like, okay, if I'm drifting and I start getting a bite, I'm gonna spot lock and give him time to get it. They'll quit hitting. If you keep floating, they'll stay right with it. For some
Here,
reason, every time I go in spot lock to give him a chance to hit, they quit messing with it totally.
I'll tell you, here's something that you give a try the next time it happens, Chuck. When you're drifting along through there and you got that trolling motor pulling you, and they're pecking at your bait, speed up a little bit and see if they grab it.
That work for you?
It has before. It doesn't every time. Sometimes they're just like when you spot lock, they go away. But
Yeah.
if they want it, when it speeds up, they'll drill it.
They're like, it's
Well,
getting away. It's getting away.
Yeah, gotta have
Yeah.
it. We gotta have it right now.
The other thing I do is reach down, grab the line at the very first eye, and pull it back up to the reel, and then let go of it. and I've seen him come along and just bury a rod right after that.
Yeah, Marty Green says, you guys ever use planer boards drifting? We use them all the
Oh
time,
yeah,
drifting the channels and ledges and spread. Yeah, tell us about it, Doc. I'm very
yeah.
interested in them. I know some guys I've
I
talked with on
love using.
Facebook. They
Yep.
they make them and make some extra money as they're making their own. If you can give us some info on those, and do you make your own?
No, I use church the red board planer boards. That's about all I use. I'm real interested in the ones that Lyle's got. He's got ones that sit right behind the boat, and I'm real interested in how those work. It looked like an ice cream cone, I think, is what I've seen on the web when he sent me the link to them. But I like to use the boards so that you can get rods out. You know, you can actually get them out farther away from the boat, and if you've got fish that are suspending a little bit, you know, you can set your depth whatever you want to with a light weight on there and get it down to them. But I've used planer boards for years. When I was anchoring a lot, I did that. You know, I'd throw the baits out the back, and then the two on the outside of the boat, I'd throw them out, attach a planer board, drop it in the water, and just let it run that bait all the way to the outside.
And you'll rig it up the same. Like if you're using Larry Muse rigs, you can use those out there,
Yeah.
or just you
Yep.
just do it just like you're dragging, but you put a
Yep.
planer board on it.
Put a planer board on it.
Awesome.
Well, I'm gonna let you guys know, and Doc, you know, I think I told Chuck and Doc, but we have picked up Church's planer boards as a sponsor for not only for Catfish Weekly, but they're going to be sponsoring Cindy and I in the tournaments, and I will have those in here for next week, and we'll talk about them a little bit. They're in the boat right now, and we're going to be testing those all summer. I am so excited about this TX44 board they have. It's about this long, and it's not lightweight. It's very well made, and this thing is made to use with heavy weights and big baits. And we're talking about 10, 12, 14 ounces of weight in bait. That's a pretty big
Wow.
skipjack head or body or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, send me the link. Send me the
Okay,
link.
but it's
On this week.
okay. As soon as I get their image to put up on Catfish Weekly, it'll be up there. These things are awesomely made. The nicest people you ever want to deal with. They're just outstanding. They've been doing the planer board business for years and years, and like their motto is, they didn't invent them, they just perfected them. And these things are awesome. They're amazing how well they work. And like I say, I would have had them in here tonight if I know he's going to get on the subject. They're in the boat. I will have them. We've just been getting poured on again. I will have them in here, and I'll go through some stuff with them. We're doing a video deal for them now. They are an outstanding product, and you can get on and bill, and then people will take great care of you if you need anything. But I'm wound up about this TX44. Like I say, most your planer boards are 6, 8 inches long, 10 at the most. This thing is huge. Hell, it's this big and that wide, and it's got weights that you can move from one end of the board to the other, and you can, just by changing a thing on them, you can make them go to the right or to the left, either way you want to go, and you can adjust the height to how they sit in the water. They're just an amazing product, and I am convinced that there's nothing going to be any better for dragging bait on lakes. Now, what I'm interested in is back bouncing with them, because we have always run 10-footers out the side for dead sticks to expand our spread as we're drifting backwards down a river. Cindy can't get those 10-footers out of a rod holder. She just can't do it. And if we get hung up or something, we ended up having to cut line or do something to get it away. If there's a big fish on, I got to get over to help her get it out of there. She absolutely will not use a 10-foot rod. So, therefore, we're defeating our purpose of having them. So, this planer board deal, the way we've got it figured, is going to eliminate that, and we can actually expand the distance and the spread, because what we could cover was about 30 feet with 10 footers going down the river. You know, if you use 6 of them, 6 wide, and it's hard to do that bouncing. Most of the time that's just drifting. But you got 2 10-footers and you got 2 off the corner of the back of the boat and 2 out the back. And a lot of times I'm drifting without that, or back bouncing. But things get wound up, get excited. You get them all hung up at once sometimes, and you just got to cut the lines and go on. But with these boards, you can have them running along, just bouncing off the bottom. You can have them a foot or 2 up, which I think would be perfect, because I'm telling you, them catfish would rather come up and grab that bait than go down to get it. I believe that with my heart. But we're really excited to try this drifting, and that dragon tail Larry's. I think that is going to be a huge benefit for going down through there, because it's not going to get hung up on as much stuff, and we've got all this stuff in the boat. Like I say, I know he's going to get on this topic. I'd have had him in here to show you, but I'll make sure to do that. And when we're talking before the show next week, you guys make sure that if I don't have them in here, that you tell me to get my butt out there and go get them, because these are really outstanding products, and they're going to be a game changer for a lot of people, just because it's new to us. It's like bumping was 10 years ago. Nobody ever heard of it. And very few people have used fingerboards catfishing. And Marty, thank you for bringing that up, because they are an outstanding thing that a lot of people don't use. And again, this goes back to what I was saying a few weeks ago. A lot of the technology that I use, from drifting and bouncing and planer boards and stuff, come from the walleye industry. These guys have been doing this a long time, and they got it going on. And if we can adapt it to catfishing, if it works for them, it'll work for us.
Yep.
It sure will. I have something that I want, while we're on, not to change the subject, but I got an email earlier tonight from Brad Hurstedler, and this is about the bait catfishing advocates, and he wanted me to bring this up. They're working to ask the Maryland to adopt a no more than one blue catfish over 32 inches per day regulation that would apply to both recreational and commercial anglers, as well as a no transporting of live blue catfish across state lines. Now, fellas, this is common sense. I don't care if you're in Maryland. I don't care if you're in Missouri. In Missouri, you should be listening, because if anybody needs it, you do. You don't do nothing else for catfishing. This is common sense for every state in the union. If you take a rabbit or a deer or a mouse across state line, you're in violation. If you take a waterfowl across there, it's a federal offense. Common sense. If you take a live fish across the border, you should be in jail just as fast as if you took one of them deer or something else across there. Help support these guys. Make this happen. These boys need your help. I've sent, every time I see a deal to send in for this bait catfish advocates, I fill it out and I send it in, and we all need to do that. And if it happens with something that pops up with another state to get us some more regulations to help these breeding size fish, we all need to take care of that. He continues to say we need folks from within and outside the Chesapeake Bay area to support us by filling out this very quick and easy form, and it's the baycatfish.com umatter.html, and you can contact Brad at 301-997-4945, or get on any of those guys that's out there. Bobby Vargas can help you get in touch with whatever you need. Ray Stitcher can help you get Joe. Greg, any of them guys can put you in contact. If you can't figure out how to get a hold of this to fill out that form, it just takes a few seconds to do. It's worth it. They need your help, and when you need help in your area to get regulations passed, they'll be right there for us. So don't let this go. Make sure that you get this done. I want to make sure I got that, fellas. I didn't want to interrupt where we was at, and we can continue with that, but I want to make sure I got that. It's so important that we take care of these fish, and people have got to understand we've got to do it.
Yep.
I'm excited now that we start talking about them planer boards, Doc. I know you used them before, and this is our first season with them, and we're doing some filming and stuff with them. It's going to be really cool to test these babies out. Like I say, next week I'll have them in here, and we'll talk about that and
Yeah,
go on.
I'm really interested in that ice cream cone looking one you've got.
What that does is that when you're directly behind the boat, you just set your distance down that you want your drop, and you hook this on, and you can let it out. It'd be just like free drifting down the river, and it holds you. The way it's designed is it's got a big hole in the front and a little hole in the rear, and it just follows the boat and keeps it straight behind the boat, so you can run two of them, one on each side of your motor.
That's what I'm.
Right there, you can let it out as far as you want, or keep it as close as you want, and then you put two of your smaller, your medium-sized ones, like I was saying, out to the side, because most places 6 rods is as most as you can use.
Yeah.
And if you use the corner of your boat for those, and then run them out, say 10, 15 feet, 20, however far you want, and then on your side ones, you don't have to use a long rod. So Cindy could, and I just got done doing a rod for Janet, and I told her I had her shorty done, and I was like 6.5 foot, and I know Lynn likes short rods, and so Cindy, but it's funny to watch that, to build them after you've built them 8 and 10 footers all these years, but you could use one of those, and you could still get that TX44 out there. If you want to get 100 feet out there, as long as you can see it, and the waves ain't too bad or something, it'll just keep going. It'll get further behind your boat, and it'll get hard to see. But when you're when you're drifting up through there to half a mile an hour, if you've got that thing out 20 or 30 feet to the side of your boat, and you're down the distance you need to be on the bottom, and the bottom's not changing too much, you've got a wide area covered. And you can just, you can get some of them up next to the bank and get the distance set on them. It's a really cool idea, and you can cover more ground, and I'm telling you, if you can cover more ground, you can catch more fish. Jason Malone says he can't wait to see the video of all them planer boards tangled up. He's done that. I've had 6 rods with them all turned around in a U shape underneath the boat, and I couldn't find a knife fast enough to start cutting lines, because when they get in that shape, you might as well cut them, because you're not ever going to get them all loose, and you end up breaking stuff and crazy crap like that. And I'll tell you a secret right now, fellas, that most people don't realize. People talk about breaking rods, and I get stuff all the time. Well, I got such and such as rod and it broke, and I got one of these and it broke. Well, when you're fighting that fish is not when the damage is done to that rod. 90% of the time, the damage is done to a rod when somebody in the store or when somebody picks it up and they're trying to horse it around like that and do this kind of stuff. They're not made for that. They're not made for them tips to be broke. When people get a fish in, I watched a video the other night. This guy's got a fish on, and they get it up to the boat, and he puts the rod down, and he reaches about 2/3 the way up on that rod, and he snapped it off of there. Well, it's not made for that. It's made for the whole length of that to be used. When you high stick one like that, if it don't break, it should have. I don't care who makes it or what brand it is. They're not made to do that. They're made to be used from the bottom part of the rod, which gives the curvature and the backbone a chance to do its job. It's just like we was talking here a while back about drags on reels. These guys say, well, I want 30 pounds. Why? You can't utilize that much drag. We never set ours over 15 pounds, and most of the time they're between 8 and 12. And we use a scale. And if that comes out smooth, and that is at 8 to 12 pounds of drag on it, there's not a fish that you can't get in. You'll never straighten a hook. You'll never break a rod. You'll never break a leader if you have any kind of leader material at all. And you'll get your fish in. There's no reason. The people say, well, I'm always pulling hooks out of fish's mouth. Well, what's your drag set? I got to tighten down, tighten it to go. Well, there you go. When it runs its course and it can't bend anything or there's no more give, that's when they pull the hook out of their mouth.
Yeah, they do it on Wicked Tuna all the time.
Lyle, when you said you got all these tangled up under your boat and everything, how hard is it to lose these planer boards? If you're using them out the back of the boat, when you get hung, do they come loose with the when you break off?
I've never had one hang up like that. Yeah,
I never lost one.
I haven't had that. you know, most of the time there's a clip on them, and like I say, I'll have Bill in here next week. There's a clip on them, and yeah, then this line runs through that, and you can rack them up where it's solid. And at that point, if it's not, if the water depth is too great, you possibly could lose one there. The other end of it, there's a pin that pulls up, and the line runs through there, so it'll stay on that line. You can't get past your stuff at the bottom, you know, whatever you have down there, whether it be swivels or whatever, it can't get past that, so it should stay on your line. You should be able to get most all of it back, and if, pardon me, if the line breaks below that, it should float up.
Yeah, they just float right up.
Yeah, I can't imagine if your leader breaks, it's coming to the top, and it's going to bring your line with it.
Right. So most of the time, you got to go back and get it instead of real.
Yeah, mine are 20 years old. Mine are over 20 years old.
So it's about like a float, more or less. If it, you know, it's going to come loose.
I was so excited to get in with these guys with churches and test these in the catfishing industry for them. And here's why: I have some of the old water bugs, and I tried to use them. I tried really hard to use them, and I'm sure they have stuff more suitable for what I'm doing. But the ones of theirs that I have are so small that if you put a little chunk of bait and a 2-ounce sinker on, you can't ever see them. They're gone. They're under the water. They still go out to the side a little bit, but you can't never see them. You don't know what's going on with them, but they're so small. And when I was talking to Bill and the girl that works up there for him, they got to tell me about this TX44, and they said, this is a massive thing. I use it on the Great Lakes with extensive amounts of weights. I said, well, how much weight can you put on it? 12, 14 ounces is no problem, and big dipsy divers. Of course, hell, I don't know what a dipsy diver is. I've never been to the Great Lakes, so I ain't got a clue what they're talking about. So he sent me a link to a video, and I watched this video, and this is a hard pulling diving bait that goes way down in the water, and this board just takes that baby over to the side. They just lock it in with their reel, and it's staying way down, pulling on it. It's got the bottom of this planer board, but 3/4 of that board is up out of the water like that. You can see it way off to the side in their camera shot. And I said, I got to have one of them. I just got to have them. So now we have 4 of those, and I am really, really excited. Marty Green says he's looking forward to seeing them. What the price range is going to be on them. We use some. We made ourselves. They're about 10 inches long, but we use a deeper blade to cut further away from the boat. And I understand that where these are adjustable, a lot of that stuff you can change on them. And Marty, I'll have all the prices that they give me for the show next week, and we'll talk about planer boards, and we'll talk about drifting and stuff, and if whatever else that we can come up, because we can go on and on and on and on. We're going a little over an hour now, but I'm excited about this, and it'll make a great show. And if Marty, if you're watching next week and you've got any input because you are already using planer boards to an extent, or you know someone else, please have them jump in the chat with us, because the more people we got to talk about this, the more of a learning curve it will help with everybody that's interested in doing it. So I think, don't you, Doc? I think that'll be great.
Yep.
I'm just really wound up about these things. I can't wait to get the video completed and all the stuff so we can get it done and everybody can see how they work. And I seen a picture the other day. What's that?
It's pretty cool when a catfish comes up and busts one of them things. When they take the bat and you see the board, pop up in the air and it's going crazy, and
it's saying that
and it comes right back at you.
It says you can use up to 1 pound of drop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Most of the time drifting, I don't use that much. A lot of times when we're in medium current, I'll say 1 to 3 or 4 mile an hour, 1, 2, 3 ounces of weight, 4 maybe sometimes. If we're in heavy current, I've used up to 16 ounces of weight, and people say, "Oh, you can't bump." Well, say, yes, you can. You just got to adapt to it. That's all there is to it. And I would prefer to use 2 or 3 or 4 ounces of weight when I'm back bouncing. But if the current won't keep it down to where you feel the bottom, then you have to keep adding to it. And on the dead sticks, when you're drifting backwards, if the current's too great, you can't hold it at a half mile an hour. Sometimes you can't hold it at 1 mile an hour. You're going backwards, the current's pushing you back. If that trolling motor's running as hard as it can go up the river, the thing on your dead sticks are you want them lined straight down just off the bottom. Now what I do is I put them in the rod holder flat out and release the bail on our reels and let them hit the bottom, and I make a round and a half up. And I may have to let it down. At that time, we check the depth finder. There's so many feet to the bottom, and those, if you got line counters reels, you'll be amazed at how accurate they are. Telling you, they are. And if you see that line go back up behind the boat just a little, reel her up a little, because you're hitting the bottom too hard, you know. And if you go down there and you have to look around and you're 6 feet below there, then I just put my thumb on the spool, let some line out, hits the bottom, reel her up, and crank. And it's not like setting anchored. There's something you're doing. You're adjusting them reels for depth all the time. You're watching more than one rod, and the whole time you got your thumb on that spool and you're back bouncing. And every time you raise that rod up, you let your thumb off of it, and it'll take that line a little bit further out, a little bit further out. Pretty soon you're 150, 200 feet behind the boat, and people say, oh, you can't feel the bottom back there with 2 ounce weight. Well, you can. But it takes practice. You got to be able to understand, and it's not a big deal. If you can't feel that bottom, just reel it up and start all over. It's not a hard process, but the biggest thing about it, and if you can't feel a 2 ounce, you may have to put a 3 or a 4 on it until you figure it out, and you will figure it out. If you keep doing it, it's like anything else, repetitive. You will keep feeling it. But when that thing hits the bottom, just raise it up real slow. Let your thumb off of it. It'll take that line out when you feel it hit the ground. Put your thumb back on it. Let her sit there a minute. Raise it up again. Let the line out, and it'll hit the bottom. Now, if you're as far behind the boat as you want to be, and you don't want to go any further than that, say you're 20 foot, say you're 50 foot, it doesn't matter how far it is. Just sit there, raise it up, let it hit the bottom. Raise it up, let it hit the bottom. The time it doesn't hit the bottom, the question is it in a fish's mouth or have you hit a hole? So then let some line out. If it hits the bottom, then you know that there's no fish got a hold of it. But if a fish has got a hold of it and you got your thumb on that spool and it's in free spool, usually you'll know it pretty quick if that fish is on there. Pretty quick.
Bam.
I've had some blisters. Yeah. Sometimes they'll mouth it and go on, but other times they just run off with it and they try to rip her out of your hand. And if it's in free spool, you end up with the mess pretty quick. But once you do it a time or two and you get adjusted to it, it's the most fun you can have in a boat fishing. That back bouncing and it doesn't have to be 100-pound fish. It can be a 15-pound fish, and I mean it's a blast. The first one that you get, you'll swear you're going to lose it before you get that reel engaged. You have both hands on that rod and everything. And after that, you'll be hooked on back bouncing. I'm telling you, it's just too much fun, and it's the most effective way to catch active fish that I know. And I would add to that, I would say it's the most effective way to catch inactive fish, because a lot of times when you're back bouncing, you're putting that right in front of their face, and some of them old boys are just going to whack it to get it away from them.
Or yeah, you lay it right in a hole on top of them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, guys, we're running on about an hour and 10 minutes. Chuck, you have any closing statements for the night?
I sure don't. I'm just trying to get through this last week of Hell Week. This should be our last rough week at work, and then Mother's Day weekend this weekend. So it's going to be hanging around the house with the bride, and then after that, I'm going to try to do some flathead fishing the next few weekends after that. They should be turned on pretty good.
Well, I'd have to think so, yeah, especially down there where you're at. I know they're catching them all over the place. I see these guys. Of course, I haven't been spending a whole lot of time online here lately. Just got too much going on. But I do notice that there's a lot of pictures of flatheads that's been put up, and the great. There's been some really good pictures put up on Catfish Weekly page, and I'll have to get back on there and start catching up on who's taking their kids and wives and different things out, because I just had so much stuff going on. I haven't had a chance to keep up with that. But thank you guys for posting pictures, because we all look at them, and everybody that gets on that page looks at them. And Nothing better than a guy taking his wife out and putting her on a great fish. The only thing better is if he takes his kids out or a kid and puts him on a great fish. That too is very, very great. Doc, what do you got for closing
Hey,
statements
Lyle,
for the evening?
on those, are you going to be a distributor for those churches? Or you just
No, sir.
you're not?
Nope. I'm just going to help promote them a little bit and do this video stuff and let people know how we use them. That won't necessarily mean it'll be the only way to use them, but it's going to be how we do it. Very impressed with the product. It's such a quality piece that I can't imagine anybody using anything different.
Awesome.
Yeah, wait till you see mine. Well, the one interview that before I became one of the co-hosts, I had my, I showed you guys my churches that I had, and I mean, they're 20 years old.
Great product.
Yeah.
Great product. Sweet people to deal with. I mean, they help you in any way you want. They'll explain anything you want to hear, and they have an extensive set of videos of guys using them up on the Great Lakes for walleye and salmon and different things and stuff. So we're going to add to that with the catfishing thing, and it's going to be really neat. And Jason may be right. Hell, I may get them all tangled up. It ain't no telling, but we're going to do it, and we're going to have fun with it anyhow.
Oh yeah, we'll use them. We'll have a good time with them.
You betcha.
Yeah, even if we're on the Mississippi or whatever. I mean, they're deadly on the monsters on the Ohio because you don't have near as much current.
Right.
But you get those lines out to the side away from the boat.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be an advantage. Especially, I can't imagine them not being outstanding on lakes.
Yeah, and they are. People think you're fishing for walleye, and then they roll up and they say, "You catching any walleye?" No, but boy, I am catching a catfish. And, they're looking at you like, "No, you're not." Yeah, I am. So, been doing it for years. So, what I've got is there's a benefit tournament on May 14th going out at Tanner's Creek, and this is for Austin McNew. And $100 entry fee, 8 to 4. Claude Reynolds is putting it on, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff there. He's got a lot of people donating stuff, so keep that in mind, guys. That's in 2 weeks. That's out Tanner's Creek in Indiana.
That is an outstanding deal, and for those of you that don't know, now pardon me, we're trying to get things set up to get him on the show. I'm waiting on his dad to contact me, and Claude's trying to get everything, and we're gonna. And he wears down quick. I've been through some of this stuff with my nephew that was in an accident and had some paralyzed issues from chest down. So I'm very familiar with this, and we're going to try to get him on the show and visit with him a little bit and see how everything pans out. Claude's done an outstanding job getting that tournament ready to go, and it's for a great cause. And my understanding is this young man got injured, and I understand that he was a super football player and got injured in a sledding accident of all things. And you're just going out and having a good time, and he ended up in a bad situation. So if you get a chance to get out there and fish that tournament, make sure you do. I know there's some other tournaments going to be around on that day in that area, and if you can't make that tournament, they're going to have donation jars set up. Put a couple of bucks in there for this family. They've got a world of expenses, and he's a great guy. We need to make sure that he's interested in fishing. There's a lot worse things that boy could be interested in.
Yeah.
I want to visit with you guys about the Twisted Cat Outdoor Burlington, Iowa tournament coming up May 8th. This is channel cat water. There may be some flatheads caught up there. The tournament is 7-3. 5 fish limit. There will be Cat River Anchor giveaway, Driftmaster Rod Holders giveaway. There will be $500 in Sea Arc raffle. If you own a Sea Arc and you're in this tournament, all the names get put in there of Sea Arc owners. At the end of the tournament, they'll pull a name out. If they pull your name out, $500. Can't beat that with a stick. They're going to give away a Cat River anchor. I'm telling you, if you fish in big rivers, you've got to have one of them, so you might as well get it for free. If you have any questions, you can go to the Twisted Cat Outdoor Facebook page, or you can call Alex Nagy. He'll be glad to visit with you and tell you all the specifics. It's $100 pre-entry, $110 day of entry. I don't know when the cutoff is for that, but you can get a hold of Alex. Send him a message on Facebook. Him, Elizabeth One will give you all the information. This is a great channel cat fishery. I mean, outstanding channel cat fishery. There won't be any blues. You have to fish above the Keokuk Dam, and for whatever reason, there is no blues above the Keokuk Dam. So get in there if you're in that area. You want to fish a tournament. I realize it's on Mother's Day, and we'll see how that works out. But great place to catch a lot of numbers of quality fish. So check them out. That's all I have for tonight. And if you guys don't have anything else, I think that we'll call it a night. I'll get the planer boards out, get everything ready to go. We'll have a show next week about that, and maybe we'll call it alternative ways to catch fish, because we all like that. And yeah, Chuck, I know Chuck's got some stuff on alternative ways.
Yeah.
Let me jump in there real quick on Doc's tip for the night.
Oh, I forgot.
After I was involved in this monsoon that we fished on Saturday, one of the things that a lot of people forget to do is those reels have been sitting out there in that water. That water likes to collect on them. A really good product that I use is called Tri-Flow lubricant. It'll push that water. What I do is I just take it and I spray the reels down. It pushes that moisture, lubricates everything, and you can wipe the reel down, and it, you don't have rust or anything start building up on that reel. So it's called Tri-Flow. It's available at like Ace Hardware. I think Lowe's has it, Home Depot. It's kind of expensive, but boy, this is some good stuff. It'll really keep your reels in good working order. Tri-Flow lubricant.
A can that size, Doc, should last a long time, because
I've had this for years.
Yeah. So if it's a few dollars, it's still money well spent to take care of them. That's a great tip again, Doc. Thank you so much. For Chuck Davis and Doc Lang, I'm Lyle Stokes. Be sure to tune in next Monday night for Catfish Weekly. Thanks, everybody.